VikingsSports.com.
Welcome in. Little reckless speculation Thursday to all who celebrate, which means we bring in our friend from the 5 Eyewitness News sports team, the Scoop podcast, which you can find on scorenorth.com and anywhere you find podcasts, Darren Doogie Wolfson. And I'll start you guys off, and Doogie, with this one. There is a clip going around that the Vikings put out on social media yesterday that's going viral. Kevin O'Connell, and I guess I missed Justin Jefferson won some Nickelodeon award
Correct.
or something. Okay. And to honor that, Kevin O'Connell agreed to get slimed with the green Nickelodeon slime at the Vikings practice yesterday. And a bunch of people immediately jump in with, would Mike Zimmer ever agree to be slimed for team building purposes? And the answer is probably no. But I think it's kind of amazing here. They haven't lost a game yet because it's been 1 week, but the amount of positive vibes and team building and KOC celebration, pretty impressive, Doogie, to this point.
It is impressive, but at some point adversity will hit. So at that point, we may have a different conversation. But even recently, in the last week or two, I was having a conversation with Jordan Hicks, Vikings linebacker. He has won a Super Bowl ring. Now, again, it's early, right? But, he sees shades of what took place with that Philadelphia Eagles team he was on that won the Super Bowl at US Bank Stadium. And just from a camaraderie standpoint, a togetherness standpoint, a collaboration standpoint, he sees comparable things here with this Vikings team. So, yes, it's kumbaya. We've talked about that, right? Even going back to OTA's minicamp, that it's a very positive vibe. These guys seem to really enjoy being around each other. That's certainly, I don't know how to quantify if, because of that, that's why they won on Sunday, Phil. I'm still struggling with that. Or did they just out-scheme Green Bay? I mean, is it possible that, some of these guys could have had some fighting during training camp, but yet the coaches had this unbelievable game plan. The guys executed it. Then they blow out the Packers, something we haven't seen around here in a while. We've seen wins over Green Bay, but certainly not convincing wins like that. But yeah, make no mistake, and I'm with the masses. I don't think Zim, maybe I should reach out to Zim now that he's Mr. Media with the 33rd team. Maybe I should reach out to Zim. I did reach out to Spielman the other day, went back and forth, tried to get him for an interview. He politely turned me down. Although it didn't really turn me down. It was very passive. It was, I've been dealing with the passing of scout Kevin McCabe, and I understood that. I sent my condolences. Then I said to Rick, hey, if it's therapeutic, I'd love to catch up with you. You can spin some stories about Kevin. Then I'm working on a story for Monday night. At Channel 5, we're doing a pregame show with the Vikings-Eagles game on Channel 5 locally, on ABC nationally. So I'm working on a story about how some guys are dedicating this year to the late Jeff Gladney. So I wanted to catch up with Rick to tell some Jeff Gladney stories, yet I swung and missed. I tried, but he politely turned me down, but very passively. But maybe I should reach out to Zim. Heck, I could say, hey, Zim, I need some Jeff Gladney stories. But then also, hey, by the way, Kevin got slimed the other day. Would you have taken that slime? By the way, I was a huge Double Dare fan back in the day. That's
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That's my wheelhouse, right? I'm 42 years old. You go back 25, 30 years. Mark Summers.
Dukes, were you more Double Dare?
Favorite shows. Double Dare.
Were you more Double Dare, or were you Legends of the Hidden Temple? Because that was mine.
Double Dare.
Legends.
Yeah, not even close.
Okay.
Yeah, Double Dare.
That's
Yep.
me.
It's a good show. A lot of good stuff. Early
Just
90s Nickelodeon, man. Tough to beat
All
that.
that, Man to Show, that was more my jam.
Yeah, Stickly in the
Kate Bell.
afternoons in the mid to late 90s, spinning Doug and Rugrats. Nickelodeon was the place in the 90s.
What
man.
did I
If
miss?
you had a sick day from school, Nickelodeon, man, was can't miss
best.
programming.
Rocco's Modern Life, which we're also
yeah.
seeing,
Ren and
the
Stimpy.
twins now.
Yeah.
So Judd's just totally lost here.
I have no idea. My only experience was when they started to show reruns in the 80s. That was my only experience.
Nick at Night. Nick at Night.
Nick at
you're
Night.
talking
Yeah,
about.
yes,
Yeah,
but that was
yeah.
before they spun off a separate network, and the only show I watched in the early 90s was Clarissa Explains It All.
Oh,
Great show,
yeah.
too.
Which was a cute show.
Yep. Go for hours.
All right, Dukes. So here's my 2 cents on what we've seen from the Vikings so far. I think there's two things at work here. And one is this, the breath of fresh air of O'Connell. And you know what? Mike being gone. Like, that's just huge. I think that this team seems like it's a fun team. And, I don't blame sports fans. Sports fans want a team that seems like it's enjoying themselves, which is why I think the Twins didn't catch on. Because I don't think the Twins don't really seem like a fun team. The Vikings do. But the second thing is, yes, O'Connell and his coaching staff did a great job of scheming and out scheming the Packers. That being said, the X factor here is you can scheme around a superstar. And so, like, I think that there's definitely two things at work. One is it's a breath of fresh air. It's a new feeling. It's invigorated. That's great. But the other probably most important thing is you've got a superstar now. And like this whole thing about, well, the Packers didn't cover Jefferson. What were the Packers doing? If you go back and watch the experts who broke down the tape, they are literally going through, oh no, the Packers tried, they couldn't do it. And so I think that becomes an incredibly important factor, is that you've got a guy by himself who, if Kirk makes the plays, which we know Kirk can, is going to change a game and is not necessarily coverable.
Can you imagine the contract he is going to sign in the relatively near future? Like, the tens of millions of dollars he is going to sign, a record-breaking contract for a wide receiver. Yes, undoubtedly a superstar. I still think, though, now it comes down to how they schemed, right? But, when a linebacker is covering Justin, when a safety is covering Justin, we saw linebackers and safeties trying to cover Justin more than cornerbacks. Presumably, Jonathan Gannon, Philadelphia defensive coordinator, who interviewed for the Vikings head coaching job, former Vikings assistant coach, he's not going to make that same mistake on Monday night. I'm not suggesting that Darius Slay is going to contain Justin Jefferson, but I can promise you we will see cornerbacks, specifically Slay, more often than not, on Jefferson more than we saw the cornerbacks covering Jefferson last Sunday.
So let's go down this speculative path here, because I love that you brought the contract up. He will be in line to be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, whatever that looks like by the time let's get through the season and then see what that looks like, maybe starting this spring. So are the Vikings going to be willing? Let's say this offense keeps cruising. Let's say Kirk has a career season. Let's say they win a playoff game and everything is kumbaya, and they go 11-6. They win a playoff game. Wow, this is all working. Okay, Kirk will be 34 years old going into the last year of his contract, but then JJ's got a contract coming up. Would they be willing to keep paying Kirk top money? He's got the third highest cap hit right now, as they also add a Justin Jefferson massive contract to their books. What do you think?
Well, I mean, what's the alternative? Are you finding anyone as good as Kirk, better than Kirk? Now, we know how good the 2023 draft will be for quarterbacks, not just the Ohio State kid, not just the Alabama kid. I mean, there's a bunch of others, including the kid from Florida, but the list goes deeper than that. But I see Kirk here. I do, Phil. And you find a way. You don't F with a situation like that with a superstar. You need to pay him market value. The market value is going to suggest you need to make him the highest paid receiver in the game. Now, heck, we'll wait another 6 to 12 months, and at some point, somebody else will exceed the money that Justin is about to get. But in that moment, Justin Jefferson will become the highest paid receiver in the NFL.
I'm going to add, Dukes, I'm going to add a fly to the ointment here that I think Jefferson's camp might bring up, and it would actually be the most intriguing thing, because the Vikings have now, they basically broke the precedent or set the precedent for doing this, and it's this part. Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, the problem there isn't necessarily the financials. It's that he wants his contract guaranteed. And you know what? God bless him for that. Probably very, very smart. But we have not seen the huge guaranteed portion, and I'm saying almost the entire thing, get beyond quarterbacks yet. And I wonder, because of what the Vikings did for Kirk and pretty much continue to do, if the Jefferson camp will pursue that. Because that's the game changer. That's where it gets dangerous. But Justin Jefferson If his camp says, you know what, we want the contract guaranteed, I can't really blame him a ton. So like that to me is where this could cross a potential for right now reckless speculation threshold of, oh, that is good. That's going to be a decision they're going to have to make. And all the leverage is in Justin Jefferson's side.
Sure, that's very intriguing to think about. My counter to that. So Philadelphia trades for A.J. Brown. Think about all the power that A.J. Brown had. Mm-hmm. Why didn't A.J. Brown in that moment? Because it's not like Deshaun Watson's contract is the first of this regard, right? I mean, Kirk Cousins has the guaranteed money going back years, right? So, I mean, this was a trend that started a few years ago. So if you were A.J. Brown or Davante Adams in the last, 6 to 12 months, Cooper Kupp, any number of top flight wide receivers, why didn't the agents for those receivers? I know Kupp has a very shrewd agent, for sure. I don't recall who A.J. Brown's is. Might be Drew Rosenhaus. Don't recall who Davante Adams' agent is. But nonetheless, why didn't those agents in those moments ask for a full guarantee? So I guess I will be surprised. Now, at some point, you're right, Judd. At some point, a non-quarterback is going to get a fully guaranteed contract, right? So is it a left tackle? Is it a defensive end / outside linebacker? Or is it a receiver? I don't think it'll be a running back. I don't think it'll be an interior offensive lineman. I don't think it'll be a tight end. So, yeah, I mean, it's not nuts to at least bring it up, that possibility. But I guess I would be surprised based on some of these wide receiver contracts of the last 12 months.
Mm-hmm. What else do you have in your Vikings scoop bag? Any update on Ndamukong Suh for one?
Well, I mean, he wants to play. I mean, I mentioned this with Judd on Tuesday, Phil. He wants to play. There is legit interest in becoming a Viking. I can promise you his agent keeps reaching out to the Vikings. Now, I'm not suggesting he reaches out on a daily basis, but he's reached out since the Green Bay game on Sunday, but it isn't being reciprocated by Kwesi, by Rob Brzezinski right now. The Vikings have let it be known, yeah, we have interest in Ndamukong at the minimum. So, if the agent says, okay, fine, Ndamukong just wants to play. He wants to play for a winner. He feels like he can win there in Minnesota. He's got some personal ties to Minnesota. Okay, he will take a 1-year minimum deal, which is not chump change, by the way, for a guy in his mid-30s. If we get to that point, okay, we could see some action. But until something like that happens, Ndamukong Suh is not going to be a Viking. I'm happy for Chris Garrett, just signed to the practice squad. Kid from Milwaukee, was a Rams draft pick a year ago. The Rams waived him in late August. He played his college football at Concordia St. Paul. I featured him in a TV story back in 2019. He's got one heck of a life story. I tweeted out, shameless plug, D Wolfson KSTP on Twitter. I tweeted out the link to the story on Wednesday. He was raised by his grandma, had to live in a car for a bit. He's overcome so much. He was a big-time recruit coming out of high school, but didn't have the grades. The Wisconsin Badgers wanted him. He was a Big Ten player coming out of high school, but just wasn't in good academic standing. Ended up at Concordia St. Paul, just destroyed Division II competition, ends up being a 7th-round pick, sticks with the Rams for the duration of last year. They waive him in August. He had some recent workouts with the Ravens, the Cardinals, the Bears, but the Vikings scoop him up. Kevin O'Connell obviously has some history with Chris Garrett, so I'm very happy for Chris Garrett. I did note, at least on my piece of paper here, doing 2 seconds of work before this conversation because I forgot to mention it on Tuesday. So going back to last Saturday, some of the games the Vikings had scouts at, college games. Now, they end up scouting a lot of the big games. No surprise, they had representation at Alabama, Texas. They had representation at Florida, Kentucky. But a couple lesser games that they had representation at, Michigan, Hawaii, Utah, Southern Utah, and to some extent, Iowa, Iowa State. Speaking of NFL scouts, Gophers football on Saturday, Huntington Bank Stadium against Colorado. 3 NFL teams will be present having scouting representation. I'll get those teams, the list of specific teams, later today.
Hey, one last Vikings thing here because, I am contractually obligated at least through middle October to mention J.C. Tretter at least once on Mackey and Judd Purple Daily.
Wow.
So Pro Football Focus came out with their pass protection grades from week 1, and there were 33 qualified centers, so there must have been one that got hurt and split time with somebody else. So 33 qualified centers in week 1. Garrett Bradbury ranked 31st out of 33 centers in pass protection, which is exactly where he's been for his entire career. He is not good in pass protection. So the way that this thing played out, J.C. Tretter and his camp made it known throughout the entire offseason, would like to play for a contender, ideally. I had heard that his knees were better at the end of the season. They're not amazing, but no team ever even reached out to get a medical report or take a physical. So you can't just say, well, his knees were shot. Well, he wanted to play, and no team ever did the medical work on him. So what was the missing link? And then, bizarrely, he comes out and says, the Vikings never returned our calls. And then Kevin O'Connell was asked about it in a press conference, and he said, that's news to me if they ever called us. So maybe you guys covered this on a Tuesday Scoop session, but for my sanity, do you have any information as to the weird communication gap between Tretter and the Vikings and Tretter and the rest of the league? Is it as simple as he's the president of the NFLPA and owners would rather him not be in locker rooms?
Well, I think there could be something to that, as we recklessly speculate to some extent. Like, he himself in that SI piece, SI.com, suggested as such. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I don't remember every detail of that SI.com story from a couple weeks ago. But, that's been suggested. Now, Journalism 101, why is this person lying to me? I don't know this for sure. But, Kevin O'Connell wasn't aware at all. They have so many different personnel meetings. I have a hard time believing that somebody in the Vikings front office didn't communicate to Kevin that, hey, Kevin... J.C. Tretter's 2 agents, he's got 2 of them, they keep reaching out to us. What do you think? I have a hard time believing that at least one conversation like that didn't take place.
Unless Kwesi with his time in Cleveland had such a negative opinion, or I'm maybe speculating there, but
yeah, all I know is because, we've been on this, talking point going back to April and May. I've told you the whole time, there didn't seem to be anything imminent, right? And what I was pointing to was there really wasn't anything being reciprocated, right? Mm-hmm. And we're not surprised, right? Looking at that matchup on Sunday, I think we all foresaw, that Green Bay interior defensive line being able to have its way with the Vikings interior offensive line. I think there's something to be said about Philadelphia's interior defensive line, probably going to have some success against the Vikings on Monday night. Now, Philadelphia doesn't sack the quarterback, though. They were bottom 2, bottom 3 in the NFL last year in sacks. They only had 1 sack of Jared Goff last week. So Philadelphia, for whatever reason, just doesn't actually get to the quarterback and finish and put the quarterback on the ground. But I imagine Jordan Davis and company. Now, Davis only played 22 snaps, but Fletcher Cox, some of those guys, that's a favorable matchup for Philadelphia on Monday. But truth be told, Phil, there never was movement on Tretter. And if something happened at this point, I'd be pretty darn surprised.
And I think as far as Bradbury goes, and probably to a certain extent Ingram at right guard too, it's pretty clear that the Vikings offensively think they can scheme around the problem. Because Cousins got sacked once. He was under some pressure. But, and here's the difference. Now, I don't love this, but the difference is this. If you can get Kirk moving around the pocket, which he did, it felt like effectively way more against the Packers, and the 62-yard pass to Jefferson where he ran up in the pocket and made a throw, it's not going to be as bad. Like that's the thing. And so, but I really think the Bradbury thing comes down to the fact that they think that they can scheme around the problem, and it's not going to get to be a big talker unless they're just absolutely wrong and Kirk gets sacked 4 times, fumbles, but he didn't do that against the Packers, and I think that's why the Vikings are more emboldened than the previous regime about that interior protection for Kirk Cousins.
Well, sure. Yeah, 100%, Judd. You hit the nail on the head, right? They feel like they absolutely can scheme around any Bradbury, hiccups, right? And there are obvious hiccups, specifically pass protection. They feel pretty darn confident that they can overcome those. I don't understand people saying, though, like Cousins stepping up in the pocket on Sunday, like that was anything new. Like Cousins has stepped up in the pocket previously. Like I didn't see anything overly new about Cousins. Like maybe I'm on an island on that take.
He worked the pocket more effectively than he usually
necessarily
does.
Overly different, like going back to the Clint Kubiak days here, or any number of other offensive coordinators / quarterback coaches he's had. Like I don't remember anything like way different on Sunday. Cousins has always had relatively good pocket awareness, being able to at least step up in the pocket. You know, we always wonder about the decision making, whether he'll pull the trigger on, 50-50 throw, but just in terms of being able to step up in the pocket, like I think Kirk's been pretty good along those lines for a while.
His presence to me in the pocket felt like it definitely took a step. There were times where he has been hit, fumbled, looked jittery back there, where I felt that there was a little bit more confidence. And look, I mean, he's been in bowl.
Maybe a little bit. I'll grant you a little bit. That's fair. A little bit, fine. Sure.
But I mean, he got sacked once, and for what Bradbury's ultimate grade is, that's not too bad.
I agree. Yeah, no,
to be sacked once.
I absolutely agree on that. But bottom line, they feel like that they can win. They can win at a high level, scheming around. Like I don't see any change at the center position anytime soon.
All right, Dukes, let's get some rapid fire scoops here to finish up. Can you just indulge me? I am fully on the PJ Fleck boat again this year. This is the year to win the Big Ten West. They are once again huge favorites over Colorado this weekend. You got the Tanner Morgan, Soraka connection. I mean, I'm drinking jugs of Gopher Kool-Aid here. So give me something to scratch my itch, and then whatever else you have in your bag.
Well, I'm with you, Phil. Like, start booking those hotel rooms for Indianapolis the first weekend of December. Like, plan on being in Indianapolis. Hey, you can always cancel a hotel reservation, right? You can always change a flight reservation. But if you want, start booking plans to be in Indianapolis the first weekend of December. The Big Ten West is clearly sitting there for the taking. Now, I don't know how much we can glean when you beat lowly New Mexico State, then one of the worst FCS teams in Western Illinois. Now, Colorado this Saturday, like I can make a case, Phil. Colorado is the worst Power 5 team. Now, that's not the Gophers' fault. When they scheduled this game a few years ago, they didn't know Colorado would be this crappy. But Colorado is that bad. So the Gophers should win on Saturday. They should win convincingly. Now, I get it. College football can be weird, right? Appalachian State beats Texas A&M. We can cite any number of weird outcomes, specifically last week, not necessarily week one, but maybe even a little bit week one, but certainly week two. But the Gophers should win. Then it sets up a beautiful game on the 24th. Gophers at Michigan State. Thankfully, it's not an 11 a.m. kickoff. 2:30 kickoff in East Lansing. Now, I told Judd this on Tuesday, Phil, and I'll tell you right now. Like, if the Gophers lose that game to top 15 Michigan State, like, don't write any sort of final chapter on this Gophers season. You can lose. In fact, Phil, I think you can lose 2 games in the Big Ten and still win the Big Ten West. Like, you can maybe even have 3 losses, depending on tiebreakers, and end up as the Big Ten West division champ. No Michigan, no Ohio State. Maybe this is a little bit of hyperbole watching both those teams so far through 2 weeks, but like, Phil, those 2 teams are legit top 5 teams in the country. The Gophers don't have to play either. So sure, at Michigan State, tough game. At Penn State, a whiteout on October 22nd. Really tough game. I understand that. But being able to avoid Michigan and Ohio State, what a gift. You look at Iowa's offense, putrid. Wisconsin still has offensive issues, although I think Wisconsin still has a chance. Washington State might end up being pretty good. You lose by 3. Some weird mistakes by Wisconsin in that game on Saturday. So I'm not ready to say Wisconsin is horse doo-doo. Iowa, I'm about there after watching 2 games of Iowa's offense. Purdue, that'll be an interesting game homecoming in a couple weeks at Huntington Bank Stadium. Purdue's got some NFL talent, specifically their quarterback. So like Purdue may give the Gophers a nice game on October 1st. But I still think the Gophers are the best team in the Big Ten West. So I absolutely can see them in Indianapolis that first weekend in December.
Awesome. Let's get it, boys. Row that boat. Row the boat, Ski-U-Mah.
They are fast. They are smart. Like, they tackle well. There's so many.
Got a 38-year-old quarterback.
Attributes. Yeah. Well, yeah, he's been around forever. Well, I mentioned this to Judd. Clay Geary is in his 7th year. So yeah, Tanner Morgan in his 6th year. Seems like Tanner Morgan came here when
Van
Jim
Wilder
Wacker
on the
was
team,
the coach, right? Or Goody, right?
On
or
the last
Rudolph
Rose
back
Bowl
in the
team in
day.
'62.
But like Clay Geary legitimately played for Tracy Claeys, right?
Yeah.
And he's still on the team.
All gray hair.
in his
Hilarious.
in his 7th year. But yeah, like there's just so many positive attributes about that team. Heck, through 2 weeks, Notre Dame really wanted Al Golden to be its defensive coordinator, but they had interest in Joe Rossi. Notre Dame made a mistake not offering the job and paying Joe Rossi a ton of money. Like the Gophers are very lucky. They gave Joe Rossi a raise. But like Joe Rossi, he'll be a head coach one day. I don't know when, and I don't know if it'll be at like the Power 5 level at any point, but like Joe Rossi is going to be a head coach. He is so legit, the Gophers defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Love it, Dukes. Great scoop session here. Great reckless speculation scoop session here.
Well,
Thanks
I'll give you a
for
little bit
coming
more
on.
reckless speculation because I know the Twins aren't exactly a popular talker right now on this show in this space, but mini
People
scoop
are clicking out of their
I
browsers
know,
right now.
I know,
They're clicking out. Oh no.
Mini scoop on Wednesday, Randy Dobnak placed on waivers. I've been getting a lot of questions about that. There's a lot of minutia based on his contract. Point is, I was told this was actually a shrewd move by the Twins, pretty much ensuring that he'll be in the organization in 2023.
Doogie, he's not good enough to pitch on the major league team in a pennant race. That's the headline, isn't it?
Well, sure,
They
it's
need.
the
They,
headline.
it's not like they have like a
not
jammed
getting
pitching
claimed.
staff.
I get it.
Yeah,
And he's on
I know.
waivers right now. If some team wanted to claim him today or tomorrow, they could. Let's be realistic. Nobody is claiming Randy Dobnak. He still has discomfort, he told me, at CHS Field in the last 2 weeks with his finger. He may need surgery, so he may be shelved for 10, 11, 12 months at some point in the near future. But I'm just saying, if there's a chance he can pitch in 2023, why not have him in your system, not on the 40-man roster, with a chance maybe to fight his way back on the 26-man roster.
Yeah, and he
That's
can
all
buy
I'm
and
suggesting.
he can buy catered lunches with his $9 million for the poor minor league players. That's
contract
it's
worked out
it's a
well
morale play,
for
really.
him.
Is what.
Yeah. The contract worked out brilliantly from his standpoint, right? I mean, living in West Virginia, it's not like he lives this lavish lifestyle. So, him getting those millions of dollars guaranteed worked out brilliantly for his future.
The Dauber. Judd, were you going to say something there?
No, I'm good. Nope.
Okay, all right.
I'm
Doogie,
good on Twins. I'm laying out on Twins from now on.
Okay,
I'm done with
you
this
started the
collection.
car there and then shut it down for a second. So, Dukes,
Louis
great.
Varland, I expect him to start a game in Cleveland. Heck, Bailey Ober. I wouldn't be shocked. Don't be surprised if he ends up starting a game in Cleveland with the 5-game series starting tomorrow. Here are the teams coming to Huntington Bank Stadium to scout Gophers Buffaloes on Saturday. Jacksonville, Atlanta, Detroit. So there you go.
Oh, there we go. All right, Dukes, great stuff. Inside information about your favorite Minnesota sports teams. Darren Doogie Wolfson, 5 Eyewitness News and the Scoop Podcast. We'll see you next week, buddy.
Okay,
Bye,
see you, boys.
Darren.
Bye-bye. Take it easy.
All right, boys, that scoop session was presented by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company, where they've been helping businesses maximize their level of success through risk management tools and resources for over 100 years. They're based in Owatonna. They are one of us, so to speak, and you can find out why they are so great at elevating businesses at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. One last, just real quick thing on the Dobnak front. I saw a bunch of these tweets and articles and stuff yesterday. Well, this is actually a shrewd move by the Twins because no. It's not a franchise-altering whiff. It's actually a very team-friendly contract, and they were wrong on it. But like, there's nothing shrewd about having, and they're still technically in a pennant race, about having to move a guy that you thought would be a staple in your rotation off of the 40-man roster, knowing that no other team will claim him because he's not good enough to pitch in the major leagues. There's nothing shrewd about that. He's not good. That's the headline. I just wanted to clarify.
I can't.
Okay.
I just can't.
It's only $7 million. You're forfeiting.
And again, it's
so
not
fine.
it's not like whiffing on
Well,
Ricky Nolasco back in the day where it's
But-
$15 million. But it's not there's nothing shrewd about what happened yesterday. It was a whiff. All right. Good scoop session.
We-